A lot has happened in the past few years, and I wonder if people are still interested in coming to teach in Japan and work on programs such as the JET program. I kind of think the answer is still yes, but even though perhaps your desire to come and teach in Japan hasn't changed or wavered, there's a lot of things that have been happening that may influence your decision to accept a position here. It's not necessarily saying don't come and teach in Japan or don't come and teach English in Japan. It's just something I think I've noticed among teachers all over the world. I don't think it's just in Japan. I think teachers everywhere are kind of contemplating whether or not to stay in the field of teaching or to move on into other aspects of education. As for me, I've been a teacher for over 40 years now, and over 30 of those years have been in Japan, 8 in Los Angeles, and 30 plus years here in Japan. That's a long time. Am I burned out? Not yet. However, a lot has happened in the field of education, especially here in Japan, and I'm wondering if people are ready or still willing to come and work and teach in Japan. There's a few things I think you need to be aware of, so let's go over that in this video, and hopefully it will help you make your decision. So for those of you that are new here, my name is Kim, and I'm an elementary school teacher currently working in Yokohama. Now, elementary school English has just started taking off. It actually was in the works or starting to get popular maybe 10, 15 years ago, when people were realizing that children from the elementary school age level would have a better chance of success at the junior high and senior high levels if they started learning basic English earlier. A lot of parents started enrolling their children in private language schools specifically designed for children. A lot of parents were worried. A lot of teachers in Japan were worried. A lot of elementary school teachers were like, I don't know how to speak English. How am I going to teach English? I've never worked with an ALT before. How do we use an ALT and team teach together when I can't even understand or communicate in English? There was a lot of anxiety back then. This was around the time that I was working in Osaka. A lot of Japanese teachers were very eager to learn how to teach English or how to work together with an ALT and teach English to their students. At the time, everybody was thinking, okay, we're just going to introduce English to children, make it fun, introduce them to different vocabulary, play games, learn songs and dances. And that was all fun and great until later it was decided that English should be a mandatory subject. It can also be integrated with other subjects, but they wanted to start getting children used to learning and using and communicating in English so that when they go into junior high and high school, they'd have a better foundation and hopefully more motivation to learn in English. At that time, the children and teachers were all very eager and excited. And I think it was kind of maybe that time when it was the best time to work here in Japan, because everything was fresh and exciting, and people were really promoting learning English. So children at the elementary school level were really excited, and then they did have a little bit more of a familiarity once they got into secondary school. Now, over the years, I'm sure there's many schools that have been enjoying the success of having an ALT or having their children be able to learn from native speakers. There's a lot of programs, not only just the JET program, but other programs that have evolved and included teaching at the elementary school in addition to junior and senior high school levels. So that's a good sign. Also, too, a lot of teachers, I think, are not as afraid anymore. A lot of teachers are now comfortable working together or team teaching with a native English speaker. Before, I think there was some hesitance, or they were worried about whether or not they would be able to communicate, whether or not they would be able to do a lesson together effectively. But now I think because they have experience, both the Japanese side and the foreign teacher, they have a little bit more experience, they have a little bit more know-how and ideas as to how to approach certain topics or certain grammar points or vocabulary, whatever. And so there, I think everyone feels more comfortable. And naturally, if the teachers feel comfortable, then their students are going to have a much more relaxing and supportive environment to learn English. Now, on the flip side, here's the tricky thing. A lot of children who have went to, say, international preschools or international kindergartens, or they signed up for an English program at their local language school or neighborhood community center, those children have had exposure to working with foreign teachers, with communicating comfortably in English. They're not shy or hesitant to use it. They join in the games and the dances with not a lot of shyness. But once they enter elementary school, then there are some children that have not had any exposure. And it becomes a little overwhelming and perhaps a little bit intimidating for those children who come into first grade with nothing. And at the school I work at, it's a private school, so there are, I would say, a good majority of the children who have had exposure with English, but there still are quite a number of children who have never had any formal lessons in English. Maybe they've heard a couple of things on television, or their parents have exposed them to DVDs or YouTube videos dealing with English, but as far as actually communicating or being in a classroom learning English, it's their first time. That makes it hard when you're trying to plan lessons. You want to maintain the enthusiasm and the motivation of your strong students without discouraging the students that are not up to that level. At the same time, you want to reach and help those students that are learning or are excited to learn English for the first time without making those students that are higher levels or already possibly even fluent in English turn off or just get totally bored with your classes. And that does happen a lot. We also get sometimes letters or not necessarily complaints, but parents who want their children to continue learning in English at a higher level, and learning things like the alphabet or just basic numbers or basic vocabulary is too easy for their child, and they feel that their child is missing out because they are at a higher level, and yet the classroom is only addressing the beginning levels of English. It's really hard to accommodate everybody's needs. So if you do come here and work, you need to understand that you may be in a classroom with various degrees of English fluency. You may be in a classroom with children who will not hold back in telling you that it's too easy or that it's too difficult, or saying, I didn't go to an English preschool, I don't know how to do this, and then deal with tears. So that's something I think hopefully you can read up and figure out how you can adjust or differentiate your classes to accommodate these needs. And if you are doing team teaching, hopefully you and the other teacher can arrange something so that you can address children's levels at all different stages. It is challenging. When I came on the JET program in 1988, foreigners were kind of a novelty here. Some of the bigger cities, of course, had a lot more foreign teachers or maybe even foreign workers, international maybe had a lot more exposure to foreign cultures, but in some of the country areas, not so much. And I was assigned to a very rural part of Japan, and there weren't a whole lot of foreigners. In fact, on the JET program that year, I was one of 5 new JETs, and in total, our prefecture only had 9 JET participants. It was still a novelty to have a foreign teacher in your class, and even then we weren't at the school every day. We went to visit schools on a different schedule, so sometimes we only saw that school maybe once in a whole term, and the kids get super excited. The teachers are excited. You really feel like you're being treated like a celebrity when you're not. You're just yourself, and you walk in, but you get the VIP treatment, and it feels great. But now I think because many schools have already had a foreign teacher, and since the JET program has also been around over 30 years, you may be teacher number 33 or whatever number it is. Unfortunately, sometimes there are comparisons, and it's tough sometimes when you hear all about the past teacher or the previous teacher, or how wonderful this previous teacher spoke Japanese or was able to do martial arts. And inside you're thinking, oh gosh, I'm not that teacher. You'll also maybe be compared because you come from a different country. Maybe the students at your particular school loved the foreign teacher because they were from, a country that had a lot to do with soccer, or they were able to go on a trip there, or they had fun eating the food from that area. Anything. And it's hard because you're coming in and you want to do your best and you want to make a good impression, but you're following in the footsteps of however many predecessors before you that have probably already made an impact at your school or with those students. It's hard. What I would just suggest is be you and bring who you are to your students. Believe it or not, you're going to have things to offer that maybe you never even considered would be interesting or such a big hit. If you have a talent or something that you do, by all means, share it with your teacher friends or your students, because you never know what is going to actually make that impact or give you a bond with your students or your teachers. One of the things I'm always grateful for is that I skied. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for giving me ski lessons when I was little, because my particular school had ski trips, and the teachers would always go on ski trips together during certain holidays, and it was a great way to interact with members of my staff on something totally different other than teaching. We would go and ski, we'd learn about each other, and at that time, I didn't speak much Japanese at all, but traveling with people that are interested in learning more about you and your country is a great way to exchange and become closer and learn about each other's cultures and country. So that was great with the students too. Even something that you might think, oh gosh, when I was in school, we didn't have things like internet or email, so my friends and I, we wrote notes, and we used to fold our notes in a certain way. So it looked like this. It looked like a little envelope, and kids would get really excited because, of course, origami is a big part of Japanese culture, and anything that you could do to show them how you folded something is great. Do you remember those gum chain wrapper lanyards or necklaces or things that you can make? That's something that students were excited about at one of the schools I visited. Even just paper chains. And then in turn, they teach you things about some of the stuff that they do, and they'll show you. So kids that maybe don't react in the way that you might want them to when you first arrive because you're just another foreigner, or, oh, they've already had a teacher from the U.S. or whatever. These are ways that you can build your own bridge, or offer a part of yourself for the kids to get to know you better. Speaking of students, one of the biggest and probably most challenging thing that I've noticed about students, not only in Japan but all over the world nowadays, is that technology and just things that are happening in the world have made young children so different. Because we didn't have the internet, if we wanted to know something or research something, it sometimes took time, right? You had to look things up. You had to write things down in a note. You had to take notes. You couldn't just print out a paper or take a screenshot or anything like that. You had to actually handwrite your notes and keep them organized in whatever folder or memo book you had. If you wanted to take photos, you had to wait for them to get developed. Nowadays, students can just look something up, get that information almost instantaneously, and then be done with it. So, right before, I don't think there's the interest anymore of having to wait. So I think it's hard because students now are very now-oriented. They want the information now. They don't want to wait. They want to look it up or get that thirst for knowledge quenched immediately. And that's a hard thing because sometimes students don't have the patience anymore or the perseverance to go at a task for a long period of time. When you're teaching your lessons now, they have to be constantly engaging, and you have to be thinking about all the different ways the students in your class are going to learn, and how are you going to best teach all this information into your class without students turning off or getting bored or wanting something, a certain way. There's also the debate about whether or not it's important for students to write neatly, since so many students are just typing into a keyboard and printing out what they've written. Students sometimes will rely on using translation sites or electronic dictionaries or self-corrections to write their papers or do their sentences. And few people want to take the time anymore to actually write in a notebook. They want to do everything online or in a Chromebook, or they just don't want to take the time anymore to have to write something manually. And you get hit with a lot of different theories or philosophies from your fellow teachers about which is the best to do. So that's kind of a challenge now. And if you're someone who's die-hard set on teaching a certain way, and you happen to get assigned to a school or with teachers that have a totally different way of teaching or philosophy than you have, it could be a little rough at times, or it could even be a big conflict of how you're going to teach something or how you believe something should be taught. I guess my biggest piece of advice here is to compromise and be open to learning or teaching different ways. A lot of teachers may be like me, where they're old school and they learned how to do and teach things a certain way. But many of them, including myself, were very, very open to learning new ways or new technology to teach something. I think over the past couple of years, one of the biggest issues that we faced was how to teach online. And so if you're someone that has experience or has ideas about how to teach online, are you familiar with different programs or software that could help your students learn whatever it is you're trying to teach? I'm partnered up with a teacher from Australia who has a wealth of knowledge with different tech devices and expertise in how to use different programs, all these things that I don't. Most of my experience from teaching in Los Angeles is all done with manipulatives and doing things not online but in person, doing a lot of craftivities or things where you're actually working with manipulatives or reading with books and not using something that's on a screen. So I think together we balance each other out and we're able to learn the benefits and the perhaps downfalls of both techniques and areas, and we can kind of see what works, what doesn't work, what needs to be tweaked, and we can go from there. For those of you who may possibly be going on your JET interviews very soon or maybe someday, I think it's important for you to show the skills and ideas you can bring not only for you to use in your classroom, but also for you to help and teach other teachers at your school or in the program with you how to do. The JET program often has different conferences and workshops, and all over Japan they have different workshops given by language companies, publishing companies, different organizations, and those are things I would suggest getting active in as soon as you get here, because it's a good way to, keep up to date on your craft and also to share what you have with other people. Don't ever sell yourself short and think, they're not going to be interested in this, or oh no, I don't know if anyone else would want to use this, because most likely there's people there that you assume that they know how to do something, but actually they don't. And so by communicating or sharing with you, they're learning how to do new things. I think the last area which I think has changed over the years in regards to teaching English in Japan is the recognition and the help that is given to support all teachers with their workload and their mental health and with feeling accepted or appreciated. In the past, I think teachers were always meant to persevere, hold things in, stay late at work, make work your first priority. And I get this, and it still happens a lot. It probably happens more so with your Japanese colleagues than with your foreign colleagues. But I think there's a lot more awareness now to making sure that the mental health of teachers comes as first priority over workloads. I think people fail to realize that we're not only dealing with working in a job in a foreign country with colleagues and administrators that are different from the ones that we've experienced. I think people sometimes forget that we are not only dealing with living in a foreign country, but we are also working in a foreign country. And most oftentimes we're in a workplace where our native language is not spoken at all, and perhaps not even understood by the majority of our colleagues. We are working under the law and beliefs of a culture that is different from ours. So there may be some aspects of the job that we think are, absurd or frustrating, or we question why certain things are done a certain way. But because we've chosen to work in another country, a lot of times we need to bite our tongues or accept it or deal with the frustration, and it can be overwhelming at times. Many of us don't have our support network, our families, our close friends, our loved ones who may be in a different country or who we might not even be able to see for the next year or so. And that's tough. We have to struggle sometimes when things happen back in our own country or with our family or loved ones that are living elsewhere, because we still have to carry on and do our jobs here. But so many things that might go through your head or that you might be worried about back home often interfere with our ability to do our best job, and that's not good. I think before, nobody really knew what to do because nobody wanted to complain or bring up issues or be negative. And I feel like now that especially the JET program has been in existence for quite a while, and now that there are a lot more foreign teachers here in Japan, I feel that we do have a pretty good network system, and we are able to meet and connect with people who may be going through similar experiences as we are, or who may just need time to vent or share or support. We have that network because partially social media and the internet have allowed us to connect with people that are going through the same things, but also too, I think schools and your colleagues are much more understanding and helpful with trying to get you whatever help you might need, even if it's just a day off or spending time to just get your thoughts together or taking a sick day without feeling guilty about it. It's still an issue that I think is not fully solved. So I think when you do come here to work, there still are going to be a lot of issues or a lot of things that take getting used to, or that you may need assistance with. But just know that there are a lot more opportunities now to reach out for help and get the help that you need or the assistance that you need. And yeah, it was just so hard back in, how did I do it? How did I make it here so long? Only because, I do remember one time calling the helpline, and I had a problem, and I called up the helpline, and the helpline made me more frustrated than actually giving me help. It was basically a question regarding legal advice or things having to do with just a problem that I was having. And the person I talked to kept saying, well, you're not going to get any help because you're a foreigner. And I said, well, yes, I know that, but that doesn't solve the problem. So what can I do as a U.S. woman who needs help with this issue? Who can I ask? Well, you're better off just going back to your home country. But that's not the point. I don't want to go back to my home country. I am working in a job that I love, and it is this incident that is interfering with my ability to feel comfortable and feel safe. And everything I said, this guy just kept giving like an argument. And I thought, you know what? You haven't been very helpful at all. So thank you for trying to help, but I think I can figure things out a different way. And I hung up. And that was really frustrating. But I'm sure those helplines now have come a long way. And perhaps maybe there's more training. I don't know. More sensitivity now. That's the other thing. I think there's a lot more issues in the world now that we have to be so careful and sensitive of. And back in 1988, I think the only issue that people were upset about was being called a gaijin. A gaijin is kind of just the way that you say foreigner or foreign person, but a lot of people get very offended when they're just called a gaijin instead of being accepted for just being a person from the US or whatever. But yeah, that was like probably the biggest issue. And now there are so many more issues and so many more things that we have to be aware and conscious of. And not only in Japan, but other parts of the world as well. But I think it's just hard because maybe in Japan things are getting a little bit more open-minded, but there still are areas which are challenging. So, yeah. So anyways, I don't want to end on a negative note. I still hope that you are motivated and excited to apply or to come on a program, a teaching program to work here in Japan. I'm excited if you're interested in teaching as an international school teacher, an immersion school teacher, or maybe even at a business or vocational school. I'm excited if you come to work in Japan, if that is what you are interested in yourself. Because I think teaching in any capacity is one of the most rewarding professions that there is. However, it is not the easiest, and it is definitely very challenging. And should you decide to accept your mission, sounds like, right? Should you decide to accept this mission to come and teach in Japan, I hope that you have a wonderful experience. And no, seriously speaking, there are a lot of people such as myself who would love to help you out, and hopefully I can share all the mistakes I've made so that you don't have to make them as well, and so that you can have a much easier time and enjoy your experience when you get here. All right. So with that, I'm going to say thank you. And yes, if you are interested in teaching in Japan, I have a playlist just called Teaching in Japan, and I'll try to put videos and do it a little bit more regularly to help you if you are interested in that. I also like to make videos about my experiences here in Japan and places that I go or interesting things that I see. And I'm also a puppy mom at the moment. But if any of those topics interest you, I would love to have you join us here. It is a wonderful community of people here on YouTube, and I'm so blessed to have met a lot of people through my interaction on various social media platforms and here in Japan. So come join us. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye.